Part 42. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Jeon. Chapter 411. Winter morning. The sun shines through the sparse clouds, casting mottled light and shadow. Although the trees on both sides of the street have lost their summer prosperity, they still stand in a unique posture. When three stunning beauties walk on the street, they are like three blooming flowers, attracting the attention of countless people. Lin Xian feels that their beauty is not just about appearance. It's more about the confidence and elegance that exudes. It was also the first time for him to go shopping with his future mother-in-law. It can be seen that the mother-in-law is very happy. After all, as a mother-in-law, there is almost no possibility of shopping. Not only is it embarrassing himself, but it is also embarrassing the guards. But it's different with Lin Xian. The guards can all rest. At this time, he was transforming into a little follower, following behind the mother and daughter. Seeing his mother-in-law and two sisters having fun, Lin Xian was in a good mood. At noon, the four of them found a restaurant to have dinner. Have to go to work tomorrow? Chu Shui looked at her future son-in-law and asked with a smile. Lin Xian nodded with a smile, brought juice to his mother-in-law and poured it into a cup. The boss only gave me 1 week's leave. Too little. Chu Shui frowned her delicate eyebrows. You have done so many things for the country, why don't you give me more holidays? My brother is a policeman. Mu Qingtian held her mother's arm and pouted her lips. The police are so busy that they don't have time to spend time with my wife. Lin Xian was embarrassed and glared at the smelly sister. Mu Qingtian made a face. He also stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, giving his brother a meaningful look. You old Siji, Lin Xian thought of the popping candy last night. Everyone is feeling bad. I still remember a joke. Two women chatting. A woman asked her best friend, what was the reason your boyfriend used when he took you home for the first time? Best friend, my boyfriend said that his brother is waiting for me at home and wants us to get to know each other. He also asked me to shake hands with his brother. Woman, have you gone? Best friend, yes, since my boyfriend's brother wants to meet me, of course he has to get to know me. It doesn't matter if he shakes hands or something. Result. Woman, have you met his brother? Is he handsome? Best friend, I saw him, isn't he very handsome? Woman, shake hands. Bestie, hold it. Woman, why are you blushing? Best friend, his brother, is not very serious, and he even treated me to popping candy. Woman? Lin Xian had a complicated expression. Looking at Mu Qingtian's pink and red lips, she felt a little guilty. Mu Qingtian immediately understood the look in Xiao Bao's eyes, and he smiled infatuatedly, his eyes as charming as silk. You two are about the same. Mu Qingtian couldn't stand it anymore and glared at her younger siblings. This is outside. Lin Xian and Mu Qingtian bowed their heads obediently, while Cuckoo smiled sullenly. Chu Shui? After all, they are from the previous generation, so how can they keep up with the speed of children? Not to mention that young people today can drive with just their eyes. Are you going to be a police officer forever? Chu Shui looked at her son-in-law and asked something strange. Lin Xian looked at his mother-in-law deeply with deep eyes. The Mu sisters also frowned slightly and looked at their mother. Today, their mother came to visit them for shopping, and they noticed something was wrong. Madam of the dignified minister, will you go shopping if you have nothing to do? People who don't understand officialdom may not understand. Those who play officialdom are most afraid of having their family members exposed. They are also most worried about their family members getting into trouble for them. This is common sense. The higher the level, the more so. For example, has anyone seen the family members of those big guys? Chu Shui visited today, and now she asked this question again. What are the IQs of the three siblings? Immediately I noticed something was wrong. Seeing the three little guys looking at her, Chu Shui's cheeks turned red, actually. Seeing the embarrassed look on his mother-in-law's face, Lin Xian smiled instead, just tell me if you have anything to do. I will also be your son from now on, and I'm not trying to cheat my children, right? Suddenly I found that my mother-in-law is a bit naive. Compared with the old bastards in the officialdom, the tricks they play are too young. Chu Shui was stunned for a moment, and the eyes she looked at her son-in-law became more loving. It's your grandpa who wants to see you. My grandpa? Lin Xian was stunned for a moment, but reacted immediately. This grandpa is not his grandpa, but the grandpa of his two sisters. Tell me a funny thing. Sometimes, the higher the level of a wealthy family, the more likely they are to be well matched. Guess whose daughters the wives of those big guys are? Who is my mother-in-law's father? Lin Xian's head got bigger. You met once. Chu Shui reminded with a smile, that time your grandpa went to pick you up. By the way, your two grandpas should have picked you up together. Lin Xian looked surprised and remembered something. One time when he returned to Beijing, his grandfather and an old man picked him up. And that time, he got into a car with a special license plate. The car of the big boss of the security bureau. Although his grandfather did not introduce him to him at that time. But Lin Xian also guessed the identity of the big boss. I didn't expect that it was really his grandfather. The two grandpas came to pick him up together. But Lin Xian didn't know. Two grandfathers once made a joke that was not a joke. The sister's grandfather wanted him to take a job in the security bureau. But Mr. Liu rejected it at that time. Here comes the problem. It's okay to let Lin Xian kill people, he's like a killer. Isn't it ridiculous to let him be a guard? But there's a saying, the best defense is offense. If you get rid of all the dangers, will there still be danger? Among Lin Xian's personal abilities, there is one that is very suitable for being a guard. Danger perception. As long as any danger approaches, it will be detected at the first time. This is also the most powerful cheat after Lin Xian's rebirth. Otherwise, he doesn't know how many times he would have died. Guard, Lin Xian is in pain. After rebirth, his dream was just to be a policeman. But now he is wandering further and further on the wrong path. He did the work of a policeman. He also did the work of a soldier. He did the work of a special agent. No, now he has to play with guards again? Lin Xian was a little confused. I just want to be a policeman quietly. Why is it so difficult? Since the mother-in-law has spoken, can Lin Xian not give face? It seems. Chu Shui came today to use her daughter's channel to control her son-in-law. This is normal. Who would not take good things to their own home? Nowadays, there are major systems in the country. The police, the military, the special service, the special department, who would not be jealous of Lin Xian? Don't want to get him there? The guards don't want Lin Xian? The fifth brother asked him more than once if he was interested in playing in the security bureau. I didn't take it seriously in the past, but now I understand it. The fifth brother also received a task. Okay, I'll go see Grandpa when I have time. Lin Xian agreed and gave his mother-in-law enough face. Okay. Chu Shui smiled from ear to ear, and her eyes looked more kind when she looked at her son-in-law. The sisters of the Mu family were all looking at their brother and holding his hand. How could they not see that Lin Xian was all because of them? Otherwise, even if the King of Heaven came, it would be shit. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 412. The holiday is over. Early in the morning, Lin Xian hugged Mu Qingjian and hummed in her arms, "You've gained weight, that's great, I like you more." Mu Qingjian blushed and pinched her son's face. She and her sister originally bought 36D bras. She has been with Lin Xian for almost a year. It's one size bigger. As for why? Wait until you have a baby next to you, you will know. You are 23 years old, you can't act like a spoiled child anymore. Mukinjian's eyes were soft, and she coaxed softly, get up and catch the bad guys. What if you don't want to go to work? Lin Xian's face arched in her arms. Even if you don't want to go to work, it should be your sister lying in your arms, right? Mukinjian smiled sweetly, and her soft and beautiful style bloomed in an instant. Not like Mukintian's enchanting charm. More like a gentle goddess without coldness. Lie down for a while. Lin Xian hugged her and raised his head to kiss her mouth. Mukinjian sighed. She knew she had fallen a long time ago. Hugging her rebellious son, patting his back. Accompanying him, pampering him, coaxing him. The two siblings lingered in bed until 6:30. Lin Xian jumped up, kissed Mukinjian, and ran away. Mukinjian smiled gently, but helplessly. As if looking at a child who was late for school. She was very satisfied with such a life. At 7:20, Lin Xian finally ran into the Ministry of Public Security. Entered the underground and came to the Special Task Force for Serious Criminal Cases. Almost late. Lin Xian greeted his subordinates. When he found that Zhang Xiaoyang saw him, he pouted. Damn, I forgot about him. Lin Xian hurriedly smiled and handed him a cigarette. Not long ago, I promised Zhang Xiaoyang that the sisters would introduce him to a girlfriend. In the end, I forgot about it. Ha! Zhang Xiaoyang was disdainful, who has never seen a cigarette, eh? He wanted to pretend the previous second. The next second, he shamelessly took the special supply from Lin Xian's hand. Okay, didn't I forget it? Lin Xian patted his shoulder. I'll tell my sister when I go back tonight and see if there is a suitable one for you. It doesn't matter whether you have money or not, whether you are a second generation or not. Zhang Xiaoyang's eyes were hot, just good character is enough. It doesn't matter whether you have money or not. Lin Xian frowned, your thinking is wrong, and you are stupid. Ah, Zhang Xiaoyang was stunned. Wang Meng and others came over and watched with a smile. Sometimes, choosing a partner does depend on ideology, morality, and upbringing. Lin Xian gave Zhang Xiaoyang advice as a person who had experienced it, but a girl's ability to make money can also represent her ideology and morality. Can she make money without ideology? Who would do business with her without morality? Making money also represents her education and ability. It's like the higher the level and the richer the woman, the higher the level, the broader the vision, the better the temperament. When she follows you wholeheartedly, you will find that they are very logical and will not often make trouble with you unreasonably. When you talk to them, they can listen to you. They understand what men like and need, and they value the relationship between partners, instead of selfishly thinking about yourself and talking about having children all the time. They generally don't use those low-level tricks, nor do they bother to use them. Even if you break up one day, these high-level, logical women will be very decent and most of them will not stab you in the back. Of course, the more high-level women are, the more destructive they are. If you dare to betray them, you will probably die miserably. However, what I'm talking about refers to good women. Lin Xian looked at Zhang Xiaoyang who was lost in thought. There are 70 or 80 kinds of detailed thoughts among 100 people, and they should not be summarized in a long article. This is just my personal opinion. The eyes of everyone present were very complicated, staring at Lin Xian in a daze. They are not fools. Is what Lin Xian said really just his personal opinion? There are two high-level women around him. Who else knows high-level women better than him? I know. Zhang Xiaoyang came back to his senses. Thank you, boss. It can be seen. His past thinking was corrected by Lin Xian. I also look forward to what kind of people Lin Xian's sisters can introduce to him in the future. Don't expect too much. Lin Xian teased, remind you, it's not difficult to introduce you, but women have a strong mentality. If you want to control you, you must have the ability to match her. It's like the term equal status, it's not a joke. If you don't have that ability, why would a good woman be with you? Can a poor boy with no ability marry a rich lady? Yes, that's a novel, that's a movie, that's a dream. It's true that she is a rich lady, but she is not a fool. The truth is sometimes so hard to hear. Then I'm finished. Zhang Xiaoyang was desperate. Are you stupid? Lin Xian laughed and scolded, you are my brother, a policeman. What do you mean? Zhang Xiaoyang was confused. Have you forgotten your police merits? Lin Xian pointed at this idiot and laughed and scolded, for many people, you are a hero, do you understand? Merit is also a symbol of a man's strength. It is also a man's confidence, fought for with blood and life. Beauty loves heroes, this is not just a novel. Because girls really admire strong men. Isn't the word Mujiang derogatory? Yes, Lin Xian still remembers that after the word Mujiang appeared, a certain beast said that this word was a derogatory word. Funny, right? When did admiring the strong, worshipping the strong, liking the strong, and chasing the footsteps of the strong become derogatory words? Is it right for us to admire the weak, worship the weak, like the weak, and become weak people? For example, there is a saying, is it difficult to admit that others are excellent? Shouldn't we work hard to improve ourselves, keep up with the strong, surpass them, and become stronger people? What is the final fate of this beast? In 2024, he was carried away by the national security. Yes. Zhang Xiaoyang smiled foolishly, I am a hero. The merits of the Special Criminal Case Task Force, too many. The collective merits are countless, and everyone has individual first, second, and third-class police merits. If this is not a hero, what is a hero? When a policeman puts on a police uniform and wears a medal on his body. If he stood in front of the girl again, who wouldn't be confused? Boss, I'll leave my happiness to you. Zhang Xiaoyang looked like a little dog, licking all kinds of things, please accept my knees, are you interested in a pie deal? Get lost. Lin Xian laughed and scolded, kneel down, call me daddy. Okay godfather. Zhang Xiaoyang was about to kneel down and hug his thighs. The crowd burst into laughter, and the atmosphere was full of joy. However, at this moment, Lin Xian's mobile phone rang. He took it out and took a look, and the smile on his face froze. The General Political Department called. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 413. Lin Xian drove into the General Political Department compound. No one accompanied him this time, but he was alone. The moment he got off the car, several eyes looked over, and several soldiers were stunned. They had never seen such a young colonel. The neat and straight military uniform was worn on Lin Xian's perfect body of 185 centimeters tall. It was like a strong pine tree standing proudly in the wind and snow. The colorful rank and qualification badges on his chest further highlighted his merits. The Red Star Medal, Combat Hero, Major Non-Military, 2 first-class military merits. The expressions of those soldiers were sluggish, as if they had seen gods. Lin Xian just looked over with a faint look. Bang! 7 or 8 soldiers stood at attention and saluted. They were not saluting Lin Xian. Because the lowest ranking among them were colonels, and there was also a major general. They were saluting the merits that Lin Xian had won, and they were saluting the national hero. Lin Xian returned the salute, smiled and nodded, and walked into the General Political Department building. Just saw my uncle coming towards me. Why are you here so early? You even thought of meeting you at the door. Lu Xingguo patted his nephew's shoulder affectionately. There were 4 generals following him. 5 generals were used to welcome a school officer. This was a bit of a big deal. Come earlier. Lin Xian was a little embarrassed. There was a difference only when there was a comparison. Facing these generals, he still felt a little guilty. Set a small goal, I must become a general this year. Of course, Lin Xian only dared to brag in his heart. There is everything in dreams. But he also knew that he came here to receive the award this time. It is impossible not to give rewards for the Gallic Rooster trip. Lin Xian was also very curious about what the big guys above would reward. Military rank, police rank, level, can't afford it. What else would they give? Walked into the building with my uncle and came to the door of the small conference room. The 5 generals stopped and looked at Lin Xian with a smile. Their eyes signaled him to go in alone. Lin Xian was a little nervous. I thought I would meet the boss like last time. But when he went in, there was only my grandfather. This made him a little confused. Come here. Old Lu smiled and looked at his grandson. Lin Xian walked over obediently. Then, he saw 3 red trays next to his grandfather. His heart suddenly pounded. He stared at them. The first tray, First Class Military Merit Medal. The second tray, First Class Combat Hero Medal. The third tray, Special Combat Hero Medal. Lin Xian's eyes were filled with enthusiasm and even fiery light. Why was he so excited? Are these medals more powerful than the Red Star? No, they are not as good as the Red Star medal. But those who have served in the military may know. If the August 1st medal is the highest honor of the army, then the Special Combat Hero Medal is the highest honor that demonstrates personal strength. When a soldier is awarded the Special Combat Hero Medal, he can point at all the soldiers in the Dragon Army and shout one sentence. I am the best in the world. Crazy. Yes, I am that crazy. Because this kind of honor is not only a deification. It is equivalent to the country recognizing you as the top god of war among gods of war. The first-class Red Star medal is awesome, right? Only more than 200 people have won it. But the Special Combat Hero Medal, counting the number of people who have won it since the founding of Dragon Country, there are less than 100 people. Old Lu looked at his grandson quietly. Gradually, a trace of emotion emerged from his old face. First, he picked up the first-class merit medal and put it on Lin Xian's chest. Then, he picked up the first-class combat hero medal and put it on again. Finally, when he picked up the special combat hero medal, the old hands trembled slightly. It seemed that the medal was as heavy as Mount Tai. Slowly, he put it on Lin Xian's neck. Then he slowly straightened the medal under the ribbon. Old Lu raised his arm. He saluted his grandson. 3 medals, and the highest level God of War medal. This is Lin Xian's reward. This is also what he did not expect. If the strength is not enough, then make up for it with quantity. 1 first-class merit and 2 honorary titles. In fact, the boss above does not need it. Just 1 special combat hero medal is enough. But the country will never treat meritorious officials unfairly. What you should give, what you can give, will not be given less. Now Lin Xian is embarrassed. Old Lu looked at him and said in a gentle tone, "Keep working hard." This sentence is not what a grandfather said to his grandson. It is the encouragement of the first person in the military to a soldier. Yes, Lin Xian nodded heavily. Don't forget to pay New Year's greetings to your grandmother during the New Year. The old man turned around and looked out the window. Go back. Now it is a grandfather saying to his grandson. Lin Xian stared at his grandfather's back in a daze. No matter how straightened his back was, it was still slightly hunched. as if carrying the glory of the past and the accumulation of years. But his calmness and composure were still like a rock. Indestructible. Lin Xian raised his hand and saluted. Turned around and walked towards the door. But he did not see the corner of the old man's mouth raised. And those eyes that were so resolute that they had no emotions or fluctuations. Kindness and gentleness emerged. "Boy, I am proud of you." "Back home," the two sisters exclaimed when they saw the medals their brother brought back. "First-class merit is fine. Now the honorary title is given to 2 people at a time." But the Mu sisters are very sensible. They never asked Lin Xian what he did outside. They only knew their men had returned home safely. All the honors were placed in their hands. In the study, Lin Xian hugged his 2 sisters and looked at the display case in front of him. 8 first-class police merit medals. 1 police merit honorary title. 3 first-class military merit medals. 5 military merit honorary titles. 17 medals in total, shining brightly under the light. They seemed to be quietly telling the glory and splendor of the past. Shining with the glory of bravery and immortality. At night, the Mu sisters worked together to prepare the meal carefully. The 3 siblings drank wine, ate delicious food, and kissed each other. They shared each other's happiness and joy. Before they knew it, they were drunk. Lin Xian said cheesy and greasy love words to the sisters. The 2 sisters snuggled in his arms, listening with a smile. "It's 2017, let's make a wish." Lin Xian hugged them and sat on the sofa, laughing drunkenly. "Let me think about what wish to make. Well, let's make a wish. May everything go well, be safe and sound, we will definitely be happy." As he spoke, he fell asleep and snored. Mu Qingjian and Mu Qingtian were looking at him tenderly. The shadow of Lin Xian was reflected in their eyes, flashing with pure tenderness and sweetness. "Stupid, of course you will be happy. After all, in our wish with our hands clasped together, you will always be there. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet." Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 414. Early morning. The world seemed to be lightly covered with a layer of deep blue satin. The sky still showed a deep dark blue, dotted with a few twinkling stars. Lin Xian, who was sleeping soundly, unconsciously raised his hand and grabbed the vibrating cell phone. I was stunned for a second and then completely woke up. He glanced at Mu Qingtian, who was sleeping soundly in his arms, and answered the phone. "Brother, do me a favor." Zhou Lai's words rang on the phone. Lin Xian asked subconsciously, "Are you a night owl?" "Because night owls come into the house and come for everything." Zhou Lai wanted to curse. But when it comes to talking heads, he can't compare to his little brother. As for the battle of force, just go to sleep. He endured it and smiled bitterly. "Don't be like this, we are brothers. Don't get too close, I'm going to sever ties with you." Lin Xian insulted him. "Damn it, every time you show up, something bad will happen. Even the night owls are not as awesome as you." Zhou Lai choked twice and was speechless. Is not that right? Every time he came to Lin Xian, he always asked for help. Something big happened, something big and strange. Zhou Lai chuckled. "Do you believe there is, in this world?" "Stop." Lin Xian almost cried with laughter. "Ghost? God? Time travel? Superpower? Supernatural? I'm warning you, I don't believe it." Now when he hears "Do you believe there is XXX in this world," he feels the urge to pee. Well, it's the urge to pee on the other person's face. However, Lin Xian does have a bad feeling now. Tico. If even they can't solve something, those are very scary things. Zhou Lai was speechless again. But it's really funny when you think about it. Damn it, Tico almost believed that someone could travel through time last time. But this time, they were indeed confused again. Because it is completely incomprehensible and beyond their cognitive scope. Very scary. In the end, what happened? Lin Xian also knew that he couldn't escape, so he felt helpless to ask. That is. Zhou Lai had a toothache. Do you believe there are invisible monsters in this world? Brother, look at your complicated facial features, they can't hide your simple IQ. Lin Xian was speechless while complaining. Why don't you speak? Zhou Lai asked. I really want to ask you, are you a patient who escaped from a mental hospital? Lin Xian sneered, I have the address of the mental hospital. If necessary, I can share it with you. Zhou Lai rolled his eyes, actually, I don't believe it either. To explain is to cover up is to tell a story. Lin Xian was tired, you don't believe me and you still tell me. I'm warning you, don't call me, or I will write your name on my pants and fart you to death. Do you want to be so cruel? Zhou Lai couldn't laugh or cry, there's nothing I can do, what's happening now is too scary. How scary is it? Lin Xian was a little curious. Someone saw that monster eating people with their own eyes. Zhou Lai's tone became low and serious, are people? Lin Xian's pupils shrank. If someone said they saw a monster, he might not believe it. But even the people in Tico saw it with their own eyes. This problem is a bit big. Is there really a monster? Lin Xian became interested, and it's also an invisible monster. This. Zhou Lai didn't know how to explain, let's meet and chat, I'll be outside your house. Lin Xian. You are so considerate and even provide door-to-door service. End the call. Lin Xian lowered his head and kissed his sister's mouth. Mu Qingtian suddenly started to hum and hug her brother. He opened his hazy sleeping eyes and kissed Lin Xian on the lips. She closed her beautiful eyes again. Lin Xian laughed dumbly and picked her up. Went to the other sister's room. He looked at the two sisters hugging each other, and watched Mu Qingtian wave her hands gently to him. Lin Xian got dressed and walked out of the house. The alley outside the courtyard. Zhou Lai was chatting with Lao Wu. Seeing Lin Xian coming, Lao Wu returned to the courtyard. Zhou Lai diligently opened the door for his little brother. Sit in the passenger seat and touch the cigarette first. Zhou Lai, who got on the car, kindly lit the fire for him. Sensible. Lin Xian was amused by his brother, okay, tell me what's going on. Let's take a look first. Zhou Lai stopped pretending and took out a military tablet and handed it to him. Lin Xian woke up after receiving it. Then I opened the desktop folder and was slightly stunned. File name, Strange Cannibals. I clicked on it and glanced at it a few times. Lin Xian's expression changed, and he looked very gloomy. January 5, 2017, late at night. In City C of Province H, the 110 police station received an alarm call. The caller claimed that he witnessed a horrific incident on his way home. At the time of the crime, the person who called the police took a taxi back to a nearby community after sending his girlfriend home. Because I wanted to go home early, I walked through a small park behind the community. Just as he was walking through an artificial lake, suddenly, a hoarse scream was heard not far away. The scream was so terrifying that it seemed a bit unlike anything a human could make. It was too dark at the time, and the screams were creepy. The caller was so scared that he wanted to run. Just as he was about to run home without caring about anything, a shrill cry for help came, help, help, help me, help. After shouting for a while, the cry suddenly stopped. The caller stopped and hesitated for a long time. Finally, he mustered up the courage and ran to the place where he was calling for help. He ran more than 10 meters away, took out his mobile phone, and turned on the flashlight function for illumination. With the light, he came to the place where he was calling for help tremblingly. He suddenly stopped and looked at a human-shaped object lying on the ground in horror. The air was filled with a disgusting smell of blood, and the scene on the ground was even more chilling. The caller stupidly raised his mobile phone and shone it on the human-shaped object. Suddenly, he was so scared that his soul flew away and he sat down on the ground. It was a person. The whole body has become a bloody mess, red, a pile. Yes, it is a pile, because the whole body cannot be seen. It looks like a pile. Pieces of flesh and blood disappeared, and white bones were exposed. The two eyeballs on the head were gone, the nose was gone, and the mouth was gone. It looked like a bloody skeleton, with white teeth dripping blood. This is not the most frightening thing. The most frightening thing is, most of the internal organs and flesh and blood are missing. And, in front of the person who called the police, piece by piece, they disappeared quickly. It was like an invisible monster was gnawing at the corpse frantically. Visible to the naked eye. A corpse quickly turned into a skeleton. In this horrible scene, the person who called the police, who had already been scared to death, became incontinent. Because it was too scary. The person who called the police began to have various hallucinations and illusions. He fainted from fear. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Jeong. Chapter 415. I don't know how long it took, but the caller woke up. When he saw the bloody corpse, no. It was no longer a corpse, only a human skeleton. A strong sense of horror and fear almost frightened the caller to faint again. Then he rolled and crawled out of the area, not knowing where he was running to. After a long time, he stopped and came back to his senses from the shock, and then he remembered to call the police. After the 110 call center received the call, it arranged for the nearby case handling unit to send people to the scene of the incident. When the police arrived, they were all stunned. The forensic doctor also arrived. Judging from the corpse, the deceased was a male, about 1.8 meters tall, with blood, flesh and internal organs basically completely missing, and traces of gnawing were found. However, it can be confirmed that the victim's hyoid bone and cervical vertebrae did not suffer from gnawing and biting and other traces. It did not seem to be attacked by a large beast, and no footprints or traces of beasts were found at the scene. No beast saliva, hair, etc. were found on the body. According to the forensic doctor's judgment, the victim was indeed eaten, but it is not certain whether it was a beast or another species. The body was taken back to the Forensic Identification Center for a full autopsy. The forensic doctor once again found that there was a strange anesthetic toxin on the body. The specific toxin cannot be analyzed for the time being and needs to be sent to a special department for testing and verification. The other party gave a result, which is a rare, unknown, biological toxin. Confused or not? Then the forensic doctor looked at the various traces on the body. In the end, they could only give a death report that even they themselves could not understand. The third confirmation. The victim was bitten and swallowed by an unknown creature and died. Then this is not a homicide case. Why would the special department be dispatched? Because on the same day, in the same city, but in different locations, two more cases occurred, with two victims. The deaths of the three victims were almost exactly the same, and they all seemed to be eaten by unknown creatures. Through autopsy confirmation, the death time of the three victims in the three cases was basically the same. That means that the three cases happened at the same time. 3 lives were lost, and the entire city's police force system was frightened. A special task force was set up to investigate. Strange things happened, and there was no trace of the murderer at the scene. Through footprints, it was found that the deceased went to these 3 locations by themselves. Then they were attacked and eaten at the same time. Faced with such an investigation result, who would not be confused? Too unscientific. Inform the superiors and dispatch some experts. A strange department appeared, the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. Don't be surprised, Longwo does have this department. But it is not as exaggerated as the folk rumors. Like the 749th Bureau and the 507th Institute, just listen to it. However, the things investigated by the Supernatural Investigation Bureau are not the same as people imagine, and the truth is separated from the false. After all, there are some supernatural things in the folk from time to time, and some strange phenomena that ordinary people cannot explain. Someone needs to investigate and give the people an account and explanation. But many incidents can only be described with the word haha after investigation. It's like the cat-faced old lady in folk rumors. It's just people pretending to be ghosts to scare people and commit crimes. There are too many similar cases, such as the vampires in Shanghai and the zombies in Chengdu. The final result can only be described in 2 words, man-made. For this point, the brothers in Yunnan province have the most say. There is a saying, go to the most beautiful Yunnan province and eat the wildest mushrooms. After eating mushrooms, many people often see ghosts, which is not a new thing. The Paranormal Investigation Bureau sent 2 staff members to enter City C. After checking the 3 crime scenes, they were stunned. It was also the kind of scalp numbness and coldness in the back of the head. As a result, on the evening of January 7, 2017, the victims appeared again. This time there were 2 people. They were also attacked and eaten. The 2 staff members of the Paranormal Investigation Bureau felt that this was not right. There was no explanation, so they continued to report. The Special Operations Department came. If something like this happened in China, it would be a ghost if they didn't come. Just like the last time there was a time travel incident, the Special Operations Department would definitely come to see it. The Special Operations Department had just arrived. It might be a coincidence. On the evening of January 8, 2017, someone called the police and reported seeing a monster. The Special Operations Department personnel who received the news arrived at the scene as soon as possible. They saw a body that was almost completely eaten. They saw with their own eyes that the flesh and blood of the body disappeared piece by piece. It was as if it was eaten by an invisible monster. They were shocked. They reported it again, and July came. They wanted to see what was going on. They checked it for a day, January 10th. There was only one sentence: it was inexplicable, very unscientific, not man-made, and it seemed that there was something invisible, eating people. July, who was a little scared, came to find his little brother. He was also scared. 6 lives. If it continued, the matter would get out of hand. It was impossible to control it. July had no choice but to ask Lin Xian to help. After reading the investigation report, he put down the tablet. Lin Xian was in a state of bewilderment. If he hadn't had a lot of experience, he would have almost believed that there were monsters in this world. Or some invisible monsters. Because the police and forensic doctors have given clear answers. The corpse was indeed eaten. The most important point is that Tico's people saw it with their own eyes. How do you explain it? Lin Xian couldn't explain it, and his 3 views were struggling. If you don't go to the scene and take a look, he can give a vague explanation. What about that? Do you have anything else to do? Lin Xian turned to look at July. If everything is okay, I will go home and continue sleeping. July. If you're like this, I'm going to call the police. I'm a policeman. Lin Xian spread his hands. You can't always expose me to these messy incidents, right? Do not do that. July chuckled. Help me, brother, I owe you a lot of the credit. No, who are you talking to? Lin Xian said seriously. How dare you use such a casual tone to seduce a god of war who has just won the Special Combat Hero medal? Stop it. July felt a dull pain in his trigeminal nerve and couldn't laugh or cry. There's no time. Really? Lin Xian frowned. Why don't you drive? What are you still doing here? Are you going to treat me to breakfast before leaving? Damn, Jolie slapped his forehead. Well, I'm stupid. The car sped along and headed straight to a business building. The two climbed to the rooftop and got into the helicopter. Destination, City C, Province H. On the helicopter, Lin Xian fell asleep to recharge his batteries. The bad premonition in my heart became stronger and stronger. Whenever this kind of premonition occurs, some major cases will occur. Never let him down. That's too much. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 416. C City, H Province, also known as Star City. As the old saying goes, Changsha star in the sky, Changsha city on the ground. 8:30 a.m. A helicopter landed on the road, attracting onlookers. Lin Xian and Jolie got off the helicopter, entered a police car and drove away quickly. Headed straight to the crime scene. The first scene. It was the first alarm site in the incident investigation file. A small park outside a residential area. The two got off the police car, and Jolie led the way. Lin Xian walked while observing the surroundings. Super strong vision, hearing, and smell allow him to record everything he sees. As mentioned in the previous article, sometimes the clues to solving criminal cases are not necessarily at the scene, but may be outside the scene. Walked through the cordon and put on shoe covers and gloves. Lin Xian wrinkled his nose a few times. Smelled human blood residue. It was said in the past that human blood contains uric acid. Uric acid is difficult to evaporate, and some wild animals will mark their territory with urine. Now, without Jolie's guidance, Lin Xian's eyes have already looked at a certain place. Outside an artificial lake. About 20 meters away, an artificial bush. Lin Xian stopped and did not go to the crime scene immediately. Instead, he looked around and then looked down at the ground. Then he started walking around the scene. Although Jolie was curious, he did not ask and followed the little brother silently. In a blink of an eye, more than 10 minutes passed. Lin Xian was surprised and frowned slowly. After thinking for a while, he followed the 2 rows of shoe prints into the artificial bush. Awesome, Jolie's pupils contracted. He had seen those 2 rows of footprints before. One was the footprint of the deceased, and the other was the footprint of the person who called the police. Needless to say, it is difficult to find footprints on the lawn. Lin Xian walked slowly, almost 1 step every 5 seconds. Walking and observing at the same time. 2 rows of footprints, 1 row was running, and the other row was natural walking. Lin Xian recalled the investigation report. The caller heard the call for help and ran to the scene. Judging from the footprints, the caller was fine, and the footprints matched. Another row of footprints, through observation, confirmed that the other party walked naturally. It can be determined that he entered the artificial bushes on his own. Why did he enter the bushes? Lin Xian wrinkled his nose a few times. Uric acid. But not blood uric acid. Lin Xian suddenly realized. The victim went into the bushes to relieve himself. The next moment, he stopped. Looking at the ground, the death scene. The victim's bones had been taken away long ago, but there were blood stains at the scene. You can see the traces of the body's placement at the time, as well as the remains of human tissue. Lin Xian's eyes moved slowly. He looked around the ground around the body inch by inch. There were no suspicious footprints. But the footprints of criminal investigators and forensic doctors were found. This kind of footprints are easy to distinguish, and their footprints are all covered with shoe covers, which will not damage the scene. And the remaining footprints, the victims. What's the point of looking at this kind of thing? Through a person's pace, gait, distance, and the depth of shoe prints, the victim's state at the time can be distinguished. For example, struggling, fighting, fleeing, normal state. Through these, all the states of the victim before being attacked or dying can be distinguished. Lin Xian looked at it for a while, and his face changed. Through the shoe prints and traces on the lawn, it can be found that the victim was in a state of sudden collapse at the time. Why did he fall suddenly? The strangest thing is that when the victim fell, his body did not show any defensive posture. It's like a person suddenly falls down, and the most intuitive physical reaction, your hands and arms will move. In the awake state of humans, they will be in self-protection, without the need for brain command, and will land first to protect the human body and reduce damage. Since there is no self-protection state, it means. Lin Xian remembered the tip in the investigation report that the forensic doctor found anesthesia virus in the victim's body. The victim was in anesthesia and unconscious state? No. If this is the state, how did the victim walk into the artificial bushes by himself? Or was it anesthesia instantly after the attack? Don't make a fuss, there is no instant anesthetic in this world. They all need a process of anesthetizing the human body. No matter how powerful the anesthetic is, there is no known anesthetic that can make the human body fall into anesthesia or coma for less than 4 seconds. 4 seconds is enough for the human body to do many things. There is another key point. The investigation report records that the victim called for help. It was because of the victim's call for help that the police came to check. If a person is anesthetized and unconscious, how can he call for help? Finally, there is no trace of the victim struggling on the ground. Unnatural fall, no struggle, but can call for help, and then be gnawed to death? Lin Xian's brain crashed. It is completely unreasonable, there are too many doubts. He pondered for a long time. He slowly squatted on the ground and carefully observed the location of the body at that time. He found something wrong again. The traces of blood sliding down are wrong. Common sense, the human body has blood pressure. When attacked, such as being bitten by a beast, the human body's blood will splash and so on. Although it didn't spray out as far as in the movies. But it definitely didn't flow down the body. But the blood pressure traces on the corpse in front of me were very strange. It was as if countless blood suddenly came out of the victim's body. It flowed out and formed a big shape on the ground. The scariest thing is, it can be seen that the victim's body showed no signs of being turned or moved. Someone explain it to me. Since the body did not move, how was the flesh underneath the victim eaten? It's like people eating fish. After eating the top, you are not allowed to turn it over before you can eat the bottom. Because there are fish bones in the way. The human body also has skeletal obstacles. If you don't turn over the body, can you eat the meat underneath? The weird thing is here, the flesh under the victim was also eaten. Who can tell me what kind of beast in this world can do this? Even an invisible monster can't do it, right? Are monsters really eating people? Weird things happen again. The forensic doctor did find signs of gnawing and biting by unknown creatures on the body. What the hell is this? Lin Xian was completely confused. Is it possible that? Zhou Lai squatted next to his little brother, his expression constantly changing. Insects. After coming back to his senses, Lin Xian looked at him as if he were looking at a fool. It seems to be saying, have you watched too many movies? Well. Zhou Lai smiled awkwardly. It can't be a bug. Lin Xian shook his head, insects will not leave traces of gnawing or tearing by beasts. Besides, if you want to eat the human body and make the muscles disappear piece by piece, how many bugs will it take? With so many bugs, you can definitely see them clearly with the naked eye. Call the police, it's impossible for humans and you special people to not see it. The point is, even the most powerful bugs can't swallow a piece of flesh and blood in an instant. This requires a process, not to mention bugs, even strong acid can't do it. So, this is the scariest thing. The unknown is the source of fear. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Jeon. Chapter 417. Even if strong acid corrodes something, it takes a process. Maybe it will be quick, but it won't disappear instantly. Don't insects need a process to eat food, and swallow it instantly? Even if it swallows it instantly, can you not see so many insects? Jolie was stunned for a long time and nodded. It is precisely because these possibilities are ruled out that people are more frightened. What exactly is that thing? Half an hour later. City Forensic Identification Center, Dissection Room. Lin Xian stood in front of a dissection table. Looking at the skeleton in front of him, his face became gloomy. Gnawed by wild beasts? There was still some flesh and blood attached to the bones on the human skeleton in front of him. Through the flesh and blood, it is indeed possible to find traces of wild beasts biting and gnawing. Very strange. There are no traces on the bones, the traces only exist on the flesh and blood. Lin Xian was stunned for a long time. For example, how can humans not touch bones when they gnaw bones? How can we avoid leaving traces of gnawing and tearing on bones? Not only one body is like this, but all 6 bodies are like this. Are you kidding me? Could this invisible monster be an art master or a person with obsessive-compulsive disorder? And, at least 3 of these monsters? Because at the beginning, 3 deaths occurred at the same time, in 3 different places. How did they achieve such perfection and synchronization to be exactly the same? Autopsy report. Lin Xian looked up. Jolie handed over the tablet. After waking up, he opened the document and read it carefully. The key point is that anesthetic toxins were found in the bodies of the 6 dead, biological toxins. Biological toxins are natural toxic substances produced by various organisms. For example, animals, plants, and microorganisms. But there are many types of biological toxins, including almost all types of compounds. The terrible thing is coming. The anesthetic biological toxins in the bodies of the 6 dead are actually a rare unknown toxin. Unknown again? The victim was attacked by an unknown creature, and now an unknown toxin appears. When the unknown appears one after another, it must not be a coincidence. Because in criminal investigation, there is no so-called coincidence. If there is a result, there must be a cause. Lin Xian put down the tablet. Is there a cause and effect between the 6 dead? No. Jolie shook his head. After investigation, the 6 victims did not know each other, were not friends, had no relatives, and there was no relevant cause and effect. Lin Xian's eyes flashed with cold light. Suppose it was man-made, what can you think of? That's terrible. Jolie's face changed. First of all, this is not something that can be done by one person. At least 3 people are needed to kill at the same time. But the problem is that people can't kill for no reason. Even if there is, it is a psychopath or a crime of passion. But it is impossible for 3 psychopaths to commit crimes at the same time. If they are not psychopaths, killing must have a purpose. After investigation, the 6 victims were all civilians, without power, influence, or money, and they didn't know each other and had no contact. It's hard to attract a murder. There is a saying, people must be ordinary to be safe. Taste this sentence carefully. So now there is a contradiction again. At least 3 or more people who are not psychopaths gathered together. Killed 6 ordinary civilians. Isn't this contradictory? You have such a terrifying killing ability, what's the point of killing civilians? It's like how cheap you are, seeing a few children playing on the side of the road. You go up and kick these children without knowing right or wrong. Is this right? Lin Xian and Zhou Lai returned to the crime scene again. It's just another scene. Lin Xian has completed the investigation of all 6 scenes. There is no surveillance at all 6 scenes. Whether it is civilian surveillance or urban Skynet surveillance, there is none. Have the monsters started to keep up with the times and learn to avoid surveillance? Lin Xian can see this. Others can see it as well. But it's useless. No one can crack the killing process in front of them for the time being. You said it was man-made murder, so why don't you tell me how they killed? It's because no one can crack it? This is the most terrifying. Inside a commercial vehicle. Lin Xian looked at the young man from the Special Operations Department in front of him. He may not be tall and mighty, and his clothes are simple and plain. But his lips are slightly pursed, revealing a restrained and firm military temperament. Tell me what you saw that night. Lin Xian took out a cigarette and handed it to the other party. The young man took it with both hands, recalled a little, and reported quickly, there was a police incident at that time, I arrived at the fastest speed, saw the reporter, and saw the body with only half of the flesh and blood left, which looked a bit disgusting. To be honest, I was a little scared at the time. The people of the Special Operations Department are also human beings. Being human, there will be fear. Because I can't understand why a person's flesh and blood can disappear piece by piece, as if there is an invisible big mouth that eats the flesh and blood bite by bite. The young man's face was a little pale, I even ran over and waved my fist, but I didn't hit anything. I could only watch the flesh and blood on the body disappear until there was only a skeleton left. It's a bit awesome. Lin Xian looked at the young man and nodded. If it were a normal person, facing that kind of horror scene, his mentality would collapse. He dared to run up and punch. He could also stare at the disappearance of the flesh and blood of the corpse and persist to the end. This is not an ordinary psychological quality. A few questions. Lin Xian smoked a cigarette. Did you hear the sound of gnawing and biting? Huh. The young man was stunned, recalled, and finally shook his head. No sound. The tone was very affirmative. There was no gnawing sound, but the flesh and blood could disappear. Lin Xian's eyes lit up. In addition to the disappearance of the flesh and blood, did you see any other abnormalities? Lin Xian continued to ask. Other abnormalities? The young man tilted his head and recalled for a long time, shaking his head. I didn't hear any sound, I didn't find any creatures, I didn't see any suspicious things, and I didn't find any monsters. In that situation, he didn't find anything. He only saw the flesh and blood of the victim disappearing quickly. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and exhaled a puff of smoke. Objects will not disappear out of thin air. Or move, or offset, or decompose, or exchange. No matter what it is, there must be a process. It's a dead end. Lin Xian closed his eyes and rubbed his brows. Reinvestigate. Lin Xian returned to the crime scene and reinvestigated the scene. His eyes were like a pool of deep water, so calm that it made people feel unpredictable. Carefully observe the ground and search inch by inch. The scene, the surroundings, and the area within 100 meters were all checked clearly. Half a day passed, and nothing was found. However, Lin Xian smiled. Because he finally found a clue. A clue that everyone ignored. Is it possible that this invisible monster came from the deceased himself? Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 418. Everyone took a dead end, even Lin Xian took a dead end at the beginning. Because what they think of is homicide, what they think of is external forces. I've never thought about invisible monsters. Why can't they exist in the dead themselves? The Special Criminal Case Task Force arrived in City C. Check it out. Lin Xian pointed to the 6 corpses of the victims and gave Lu Changjiang an order. Then he ordered other subordinates to reinvestigate the 6 sites. As a top forensic doctor, Lu Changjiang's abilities have long been recognized by everyone. But the autopsy took a long time. Lu Changjiang found nothing. It looks like a beast biting and gnawing, but I think it's more like a disguise, deliberately disguised. Lu Changjiang said solemnly, with my ability, I can't find any abnormalities. It turns out that you are also a coward, Lin Xian complained in his heart, didn't find anything. This. Lu Changjiang shook his head, I don't have enough tools. Please apply for an electron microscope for me. The electron microscope he was talking about was not an ordinary one. General autopsy departments do not. Lin Xian was surprised, what do you want to do? I want to see if there are really monsters. Lu Changjiang sneered, no matter what species it is, it seems that the human body basically carries certain bacteria, tens of thousands of bacteria. Got it, Lin Xian nodded. Lu Changjiang wants to find out from the root. For example, the bacteria on humans, dogs, and cats are different. If it is really eaten by something, some special bacteria will definitely remain. Lin Xian asked Zhou Lai to find an electron microscope. Another half-day passed. There is a problem. Lu Changjiang stared at the monitor in front of him, staring at the picture that appeared under the electron microscope that had been purified and negatively stained with a magnification of 25,000-50,000 times, and exclaimed, how come there are so many things similar to phages? What the hell? Lin Xian was confused. A kind of super bacteria evolved by nature, to use a metaphor. Lu Changjiang's face turned ugly, living micro-nano-robot. Lin Xian understood, but not completely. Of course he had heard of nanobots. But it was the first time I heard about living robots. Transformers. It exists in every corner of the world, in water, soil, air, and in our bodies. Lu Changjiang continued to educate Lin Xian, as long as there are bacteria, you can find them, because this is a super virus that specifically feeds on bacteria. In the future, it may also become the ultimate weapon for humans to deal with super bacteria. So high-end, Lin Xian's expression fluctuated, and his clear and dark eyes showed surprise, what exactly do you want to say? There was something suspected of being a bacteriophage in the victim's body, but it was not a bacteriophage virus. Lu Changjiang looked in disbelief. What do you mean? Lin Xian was confused again. Someone once inferred that viruses like bacteriophages are nanorobots left behind by the previous generation of civilization. Lu Changjiang's eyes flashed with fear, many nanorobots are researching phages. They can be the secret of human immortality, or they can be the beginning of human destruction. Brother, you are off topic, Lin Xian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What kind of divine expansion is this? We are here to investigate the case, okay? Don't you understand? Lu Changjiang looked at Lin Xian's expression and smiled bitterly. There was once an experiment in which a white mouse was injected with an excessive amount of a phage-like virus. As a result, 14 hours later, the white mouse began to decompose and vaporize visibly to the naked eye. The flesh and blood disappeared piece by piece, and in the end only a skeleton remained. During this experimental process, the virus in the mouse's body also vaporized. No one knew the reason for this, but a certain scientific figure who saw the scene with his own eyes at the time. But he was frightened and said something. Pandora's box was opened. Lin Xian's expression changed. He doesn't understand science, but he knows the horror of science. Now I understand one thing. This stuff is scary. What on earth is it? Lin Xian looked solemn. An unknown biological virus. Lu Changjiang's face gradually turned pale. Lin Xian thought of the unknown narcotic toxin found in the victim's body by the forensic doctor. Could it be that, human experiments? You have to think about it in this aspect, otherwise some things will not make sense. But if it was a human experiment, how could anyone do it so blatantly? Unreasonable. Shouldn't this kind of thing be done secretly? You kill people and make the trouble known to the world. What good does it do to you? Why do you deliberately lead others to arrest you? But now one thing is for sure. Biological virus. After Jolie and others arrived, they all looked confused and shocked. Subsequently, Lu Changjiang performed a magic trick for everyone. He extracted some items from several corpses and placed them in containers. Then, he used a scalpel to cut off a tiny bit of flesh on his fingertips. It must be fresh flesh and blood. Then put it into the container. About 5 hours later, a horrific scene unfolded. The piece of flesh and blood suddenly disappeared visibly to the naked eye. Disappear in front of everyone. Everyone was shocked. So what is it, and why does it feel scarier than aqua regia? At least aqua regia dissolves objects and has obvious characteristics. The flesh and blood in front of me just disappeared. If it's a virus? Jolie asked, how to explain the gnaw and bite marks on the corpse. I'm just a forensic scientist. Lu Changjiang shrugged, I'm not a scientist, so I can't give an explanation. Jolie suddenly looked embarrassed. Since someone can make the flesh and blood of a corpse disappear, there should be other ways. Lin Xian had a headache, we need to check the specific situation. How to check? Everyone looked at Lin Xian. Everyone who can check it has already checked it, but there is really nothing we can do. Poison. Lin Xian was silent for a moment. If it is really a virus, how do these viruses get to the victims? Everyone's eyes lit up instantly. According to Lu Changjiang's explanation, this virus is not a small dose. Otherwise, it would be impossible to dissolve the human body. Moreover, this virus is not contagious and is probably injected directly into the human body. Let's start with the first case and the 3 victims. Lin Xian ordered, check whether the 3 victims had contact with anyone or where they went on the day they were killed. It is possible that they contacted one person at the same time, went to the same place, or did something at the same time. Something. Only poisoned within the same time frame. It is possible for them to die within the same time period. People from the Heavy Special Criminal Case Task Force and the Special Branch began to investigate. 4 hours later, a result was found. The 3 victims all went to the same place on the day they were killed. Supermarket. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 419. Lin Xian walked into a supermarket. The shelves were neatly arranged, filled with a wide variety of goods. From fresh fruits and vegetables to daily necessities, everything was available. Occasionally, the sound of the cash register beeping could be heard, and customers were talking quietly. Looking around, Lin Xian did not find any surveillance in the supermarket. Through the investigation of the team members, the 3 victims had all come to the supermarket that day, but the time periods were inconsistent. Some came in the morning, and 2 came in the afternoon. If the time was wrong, how could they die at the same time? Lin Xian walked in the supermarket, inspecting every item that could be poisoned. The key point was items that could enter the human body in large doses. Lin Xian stood in front of 2 rows of shelves, looking at the drinks and mineral water on them. After thinking about it, there was only one possibility. Water. Inject the virus into the water, as long as the victim takes the water and drinks it, the virus will enter their bodies. As for the method of poisoning, a syringe, inserted into a bottle of mineral water or beverage. This method of poisoning is very common and is often played in movies and TV dramas. The team members began to investigate the payment records. It's 2017. Few people carry cash anymore, and they all pay with Alipay and WeChat. The victim's daily consumption records were checked with the supermarket's consumption records. Confirmed. The victim did buy water in the supermarket that day, all of which were mineral water. Confirmed. Mineral water poisoning. Can the virus control the time of outbreak? Lin Xian asked Lu Changjiang. Theoretically, it cannot be controlled. Lu Changjiang shook his head. It's like when we have a stomachache, if we don't go to the toilet quickly, we will poop in our pants. The analogy is very good, don't use it like that next time. Lin Xian twitched his mouth. How did the murderer control the same time? There are many things that are difficult for humans to understand. Lu Changjiang said, for example, there is a kind of deep-sea snailfish. Once they leave the water, they will quickly melt and turn into water. There are also mites on the bedding, which will die quickly when they see the sun. There is also a kind of magical earthworm, which will instantly stiffen and petrify when it sees the moonlight. Viruses are sometimes also magical. Humans' understanding of viruses is still in the exploratory stage. There are too many unknown viruses that cannot be cracked by humans, and there is no antidote. But I have a feeling that the virus we found in front of us should be able to, time bomb. Lin Xian's pupils shrank slightly. Yes. Lu Changjiang nodded. Its characteristics should be that it spreads rapidly after entering the human body, reproduces rapidly, and enters every corner of the human body through the blood. At a certain time, they begin to destroy the human body, dissolve the human body, and make the human flesh and blood disappear piece by piece. It looks like it disappeared out of thin air and was eaten by a monster. By the way, do you know army ants? It only takes a few minutes to eat an elephant. This virus is very similar to the destructive power of army ants, but it is more terrible than army ants. You need to use the unit of megabytes to describe it, hundreds of megabytes, kilobytes. But they are not eating, they are assimilated and dissolved, and they will disappear along with human flesh and blood. It's a bit scary. Lin Xian smacked his lips. I don't know if my body can bear it. The results of the team members' investigation of the other 3 victims came out. The 2 victims of the second case also went to a supermarket and bought 2 bottles of water. The third case was still mineral water. It can be confirmed that the 6 victims in the 3 cases were poisoned with water. The Special Task Force of Serious Criminal Cases began to follow the clues and investigate the person who poisoned the patient. This is easy to check. It doesn't matter if there is no surveillance inside the supermarket, there is one outside the supermarket. The city's Skynet surveillance has almost covered every street and alley. When comparing the 3 supermarkets, who has entered and whether the same person has appeared. A target has been locked. Cheng Jiaoang, 24 years old, graduate student, died yesterday. Seeing this result, everyone was stunned. Dead. The autopsy report and death certificate stated that it was sudden cardiac death. Lin Xian went directly to the morgue of a hospital. He saw the family members of the deceased crying bitterly. Condolences. Lin Xian glanced at them and then issued a notice to them. Re-autopsy. This is no longer a question of whether the family members of the deceased agree or not. Because the case is serious, the public security organs have the right to decide whether to force an autopsy. No consent or signature from the family members is required. Lu Changjiang began to perform a comprehensive autopsy on the deceased. A result was obtained: homicide, or suicide, unnatural death. A highly concealed substance that can cause sudden cardiac death has been detected. City, Zongda University. Double first-class university. Lin Xian ordered an investigation into the cause of Cheng Jiaoang's death. As a graduate student, Cheng Jiaoang was participating in a cell biology experiment project. Then, a comprehensive investigation of all persons who had contact with Cheng Jiaoang, and surveillance in the school and laboratory. Finally, it was determined that no murderer was found. 80% chance, it was suicide. Lin Xian sneered. Why was it suicide? How could it be suicide? A 24-year-old young man, with a great youth, a great future and a bright future. Why would he commit suicide? Reinvestigate. Lin Xian's tone was as cold as the winter wind. Everything about Cheng Jiaoang began to be reinvestigated. Then, one thing was found. In 2016, that is, last year, Zongda held a short-term exchange for graduate students abroad. Cheng Jiaoang was one of them and stayed in Kimchi for 4 months. Lin Xian's face changed and he took out his mobile phone. He made a call. It was the number of Shen Yongjun, Director of the 2nd Bureau of National Security. Director Lin, how do you have time to call me? The other party's tone was very intimate, as if he was talking to a relative. In fact, it was true. Lin Xian worked hard in Gallic Chicken to rescue the people from the 2nd Bureau. The 2nd Bureau owed Lin Xian a favor. It was so big that he didn't know how to repay it. Help me check something. Lin Xian was not polite. No problem. Shen Yongjun didn't hesitate at all. Cheng Jiaoang. Lin Xian talked about the other party's information. Wait a few minutes, I'll contact the 10th Bureau. Shen Yongjun said quickly, I'll give you the news right away. What does the 10th Bureau of the National Security Bureau do? The Foreign Security and Reconnaissance Bureau. It is responsible for monitoring personnel of overseas institutions and overseas students, monitoring overseas returnees and other activities. To put it bluntly, when long people go abroad, you may have special agents around you to observe whether you have contact with overseas personnel. For example, when overseas students return to China, they will be subject to some necessary monitoring to monitor whether there is any espionage. Cheng Jiaoang went abroad for exchanges, and everything after returning home. The 10th Bureau basically has detailed monitoring records. A few minutes later, Shen Yongjun called and said something. Found some small problems. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiunzhong. Chapter 420. After Cheng Gao went abroad, our people monitored him every now and then and discovered something. Cheng Jiao has a close relationship with a female graduate student from Kimchi country. What I mean by closeness is that it only took 3 days for them to go from strangers to familiarity to booking a hotel room. For the next 4 months, they were like a couple, but a week before Cheng Gao returned to China, they had a quarrel and broke up. Originally, this kind of thing seemed normal, but now I think about it carefully. 2 graduate students were able to check out a room within 3 days of knowing each other. This in itself is a small problem, but it is not a big problem. Because after Cheng Gao returned to China, our people continued to follow him in prison for a period of time. We did not discover that Cheng Gao was engaged in espionage activities, nor did we have the opportunity to leak important secrets. Now that you are making this call, I don't need to ask what it is about, and I know that there is something wrong with Cheng Gao, and the 10th Bureau also gave a message that his tutor is a very powerful professor. Shen Yongjun's voice was cold. Wang Liangxiu received his bachelor's degree in 1982, his doctorate in 1989, engaged in postdoctoral research from 1989 to 1991, taught at the University of Michigan from 1992 to 2007, and taught at Seoul National University from 2008 to 2013, and was hired as the distinguished professor of the school in 2014. He returned to China and was appointed as a chair professor of molecular cell biology by the Chinese University of Science and Technology in City C. He is a senior researcher in the XX laboratory and focuses on virus survival and evolution mechanisms, evolutionary biology, genetic mutation, virology. Virology. Lin Xian's face was as cold as ice. Found the rightful owner. Because there has never been such a coincidence in the world. 6 victims died of the virus was found, and now the professor was found. Another point. This Wang Liangxiu stayed in Kimchi country for 5 years, and the suspect Cheng Jiao also went to Kimchi country. Now Wang Liangxiu is Cheng Gao's mentor again. Let's talk about coincidence. Whose IQ is it insulting? Do you want to investigate Wang Liangxiu? Shen Yongjun suddenly said, I have some bad news for you. Wang Liangxiu disappeared 3 months ago. The National Security Bureau has investigated it and found out whether he was alive or dead. Lin Xian. What a coincidence, what a coincidence. After ending the call, he rubbed his eyebrows with a headache. Everyone checked by the National Security Bureau was confirmed missing. Any hope of finding it? 2 words, slim. But no matter how slim it is, you have to find it. 1 day passed in the blink of an eye. The investigation on Wang Liangxiu was fruitless. Inside the hotel, Lin Xian, who had not rested for 3 days, lay in bed unable to sleep. He was forcing his brain to calm down, making his thoughts clear, and starting the most rigorous reasoning. An hour passed. Suddenly, Lin Xian's pupils shrank. This case is wrong. First of all, there are 6 corpses in 3 cases, which does not look like some kind of human experiment at all. It was most likely intentional homicide. As for murder, as long as it is not insane, there must be a reason. After investigation, there is no cause and effect between the 6 deceased persons. They have a high relationship with the suspect and have no causal relationship. Assuming that Cheng Gao planned the poisoning, was it just to kill people randomly? What good does this do him? Or are you unhappy with your life and want to take revenge on society? Neither. After investigation, it was found that Cheng Gao's family was very good. His parents had some assets. Although he was not the 2nd generation, he was not short of money to spend. And he has a good rapport with women. He had 2 girlfriends in college, and even hooked up with a graduate student in Kimchi country. In terms of academic research, everything goes smoothly and satisfactorily. Such a person has no reason to go to extremes. There is no reason to poison others. There is another key point. Where did his virus come from? Not to belittle him, but he might not be able to research that kind of terrifying murderous virus. It should be a large experimental institution to be able to research such a terrifying thing. So, is it possible that the virus in Cheng Gao's hands came from a large laboratory? If so, go back to the original question. Why do people poison and kill people randomly when the cost is high? Lin Xian's mind was boiling, and he also opened up his imagination. All kinds of information and possibilities converge in the brain. Reasoning over and over again, pondering over and over again, reviewing again and again. Sudden. Lin Xian's eyes suddenly flashed with light, and he quickly took out his mobile phone. Called Wang Meng and Zhou Lai. He said to them, check. Cheng Gao entered 3 supermarkets and saw if there were any suspicious people around him. 3 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Zhou Lai called, a suspicious person was found. Because it was monitored by City Skynet, this person could only be identified twice. Each time, the cost was high. After entering the supermarket, the suspect appeared outside the supermarket. But because the other person is wearing a mask, hat, and sunglasses, and his age and gender cannot be confirmed, but judging from his body shape, he is most likely a woman. Oh, a smile appeared on Xianfang's face, find her. Put down the phone and keep thinking. If this is the case, is it possible to deduce that someone is always monitoring Cheng Gao? Or not just monitoring, but a kind of control? Is the high cost controlled by someone or an organization? Is it possible that his murder was a kind of self-saving? Kill to save yourself? Only Lin Xian could come up with this kind of idea. Then even if he was rescued, he would still die. No, not necessarily. If his purpose of killing was to save more people, he would not die, and he might even be Innocent. It's like a high-speed train that can't be stopped. The train is full of passengers. The track changes ahead, and it is divided into 2 lanes. In one lane, there are 10 people tied up. At the end of one lane, it will derail. You have a remote control button in your hand that can control the train to change tracks. Now you have 2 choices. 1. Let the train run over those 10 people to save your life and the lives of everyone on the train. 2. You can choose to derail the train, save the lives of those 10 people, and you and everyone on the train will be destroyed. Normal people, don't they already have a choice? Don't say that you have no right to deprive others of their lives. Under this premise, you must first survive. Secondly, consider whether those 10 people will die or everyone on the train will die. Is this the truth? Why did Lin Xian think of this? Virus. Is it possible that the virus will appear in the entire sea city? Or will it be used on all dragon people? Everyone is about to face a life and death crisis. The reason why Cheng Jiaoang used such a horrific method to kill people was to attract the attention of the police, or to attract more powerful people to appear. Find him, find the virus, in order to save more people.